Well, my name's Dan Miller, three-time graduate of the University of Iowa. Um, all my degrees in sociology. Specifically, I'm a social psychologist. My theoretical area is called symbolic interaction, which means that I study people in different types of social relationships, interaction in those relationships. I'm a self-theorist, so
Okay.
so some of the issues you're talking about today are things that I study. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, I had talked to you, and I'll give our viewers a link underneath the video
sure.
when we post this to to learn more about you and what you study. Um, but this week, the city of Dayton. It's not the first time this has happened. They accepted a grant from the Montgomery County Emergency Services, which is they got it's basically Homeland Security money to install 5 more license plate reading um, cameras in the cars that they scan up to, I believe, 1,200 plates per minute, or have the ability to, and they back them up and check a database. If you've got tickets or any kind of like the outstanding warrants,
Yeah.
boom. I talked to the police chief about this. He kind of gave me a standard. You don't have the uh, any kind of right to privacy on the road. Really didn't get into anything with him about what's being done with the information on license plates that don't come up. Are they being used to potentially track people in the future? But the real subject I wanted to hit with you is, not only has this happened, there's been red light cameras or speeding cameras. We see a lot of cameras in shopping areas now. We've seen a lot. We've seen social unrest and a lot of people expressing frustration. I know in UK over cameras being everywhere and feeling like they're watched 24/7 a day. And what Police Chief Beal kind of laughed at my question about is this something that how would you react to people who are saying this is another part of the Big Brother state? But are we going towards a Big Brother state, and what does this do to people's personal psychology, and how does this all fit in?
Well, yeah, a couple of things. One, the chief's notion that we don't have a right to privacy when we're out on the roads is interesting because I'm not a constitutional scholar, but the Fourth Amendment, as I understand it, means that they can't get information on us, ask us questions, get in our heads or on our back unless we're under suspicion. So my sense is that there's always that element of that we are under suspicion. If you go to London, if you go to Washington D.C., New York City, they're full of cameras.
Mm-hmm.
We're under surveillance all the time. It is a loss of privacy. It is someone who's very powerful, potentially watching us, seeing what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Rationalizations for putting more cameras up usually are to law and order, to protect the streets, make driving safer, make our cities safer, or for terrorism, that we're going to be catching terrorists here. But more generally, they essentially are there to check out, and if they find something that you and I and anybody else is doing that they don't want us doing, then we are more accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I can put this in some kind of historical context if you want. Um, 150 or so years ago, Jeremy Bentham, your philosophy class, John Stuart Mill,
I'm a
and
big fan.
Jeremy Bentham were
In his head.
utilitarian philosophers. Jeremy Bentham came up with an idea for a new type of prison, which he called the panopticon. It's circular. There are cells with prisoners in them on the circumference and all facing inside. And there's a space then and a guard tower in the middle of this thing. And the guard tower is such that the guards can see the prisoners whose cells open into the middle, but the prisoners can't see the guards. So for all practical purposes, the prisoners think that they are at any particular time under surveillance. the Bentham refused to have the prison built because he thought it was too inhumane, that it would be so so terrible for people to have to live through a situation where they were constantly under surveillance, constantly thinking that they would do something, anything, that would upset the prison guards and they would receive some kind of punishment. So he refused to have it done. So here we are living in a society that is almost the type of total surveillance that Bentham talked about. The sociologist Michel Foucault, a French social theorist, said that this is sort of the metaphor of our time, that all the TV cameras, microphones, databases that we're on. I hardly use cash, so everything I do is somewhere on some database. Mm-hmm. When I shop at Kroger or Dorothy Lane, I use their cards, and my whatever it is that I buy there is on a database somewhere. There are people who are data miners who go into databases and find things primarily for marketing purposes or advertising mm-hmm. purposes, but who knows? Mm-hmm. Who knows? It's just another way that we've lost our privacy. What does it mean to us? Well, most of us are pretty well blithely unaware as we go about our day-to-day life, so it doesn't mean much. And the amount of data that's being collected is simply enormous. It's monumental. Can't even imagine how mm-hmm. much it is. So in all likelihood, it's meaningless or inconsequential. However, if we are aware of it, then it does have a dampening effect on our behavior. I think it makes people way more conservative. I think it makes people secretive. I think that because we're more aware of it, we're a little more paranoid. I think in terms of mental health, that if there's sort of any increase in an underlying sense of fear or apprehension, that can't be good.
How does this, like I had told you the other day, I worked as a school bus driver in some of the worst neighborhoods. The kids almost, I wish I didn't have to say this, but almost all of them, to a T, on not all of the kids, but on every single bus there would be kids who would be very vocal in their disdain for police forces.
Yeah.
They follow me to the store when I'm going to get a pop and a candy. Ask me what I'm doing. And, you can't go nowhere around here. And the police are asking you what you're doing. And it seems to, have developed at a really young age an anti-authoritarian complex almost in macro populations. Am I wrong with my my anecdotal survey of that?
Absolutely. I think it's pretty easy to tell that there's very little respect for the government, very little respect for authority. I live in a world that's very upper middle class. I teach at the University of Dayton. I live in Oakwood. Mm-hmm. And even here, there's a lot of expressions questioning authority, disrespect for it. Because there's too much of it. Really, the best kind of social control is self-control and not enforced, imposed control. I think that the criminal justice solution to problems in society is the very last one that we should take, and that we should work on the development of others, more voluntary forms of social control. Those kids that you talked about are absolutely right. I mean, they're not messing with your head. They're telling you what
kids tell the truth.
They're telling the truth.
They're like 7, 8-year-old kids.
They're telling you what they experience. Mm-hmm. And how would you like to live in a world like that? I mean, nobody would.
Well, I've been around. I've been lived in lived in some pretty rough neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I've East Side for 8 years.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, matter of fact, I've been in Oakwood bicycling back when I had my hair a little longer and was immediately pulled over by two unclothed Oakwood policemen. Got me out, wanted to know what I was doing in the area. I'm like, I'm riding my bike.
Yeah. And that's very common in Oakwood. I see it so often that it's not even mildly humorous anymore. It's predictable. It's oppressive.
Hmm.
Why are they pulling people over if they're just riding their bike or just
Sure, I was a vet. I'm out. Those guys didn't ask me anything about. I was a veteran for 8 years and have honorable discharge from the U.S. Army National Guard, and no one asked me about that while they're
yeah,
pulling me over without any kind of really suspicion other than driving through the neighborhood,
yeah.
riding my bike.
And they don't have the right to do that.
Yeah, I look like a long-haired East Side boy with a
So,
few tattoos on me, and so
yeah, yeah, does it make any difference?
yeah, I clean up real well though.
Uh, Still, it doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't make any difference. They're not supposed to do that.
Well, it does matter how you look, though. I mean, in reality,
Yes, you're right. In reality,
I'm not saying like trying to point a finger towards any certain police officer or department, but if you just ask around ask around the city of Dayton, certain, African American communities, do you drive through Oakwood? Oh no, I don't drive through Oakwood. Let's get pulled over Wood.
yeah, yeah.
And I've been told that over and over and over. So it seems there's some kind of legitimacy to it.
Yeah.
So
I walk to work. That's why we here for the schools, and I walk to work. So
yeah, I'd love to. I'm trying to work on walking to work right now, but
yeah,
anyway, kind of back at the subject.
sure.
How do we see this kind of stuff in our what kind of behaviors, as a sociologist, do you see this leading to? The alienation of youth. It seems to be a popular theme over the last kind of 10, 20 years is youth being as alienated with society as possible. Kind of reflected in the return to almost some sort of cultural tribalism. Adopting tattoos, doing a lot to separate yourself and say, I'm everything that the authority structure is not.
Yeah, definitely alienation. I think anytime you have that kind of potentially oppressive, repressive kind of thing happening, where we're under surveillance, and if we are, then we're accountable, that you're going to get that pushback, that alienation. That sense that I'm not like you, I don't like this, I don't want to be a part of it. And of course, all that with present concerns about jobs and not even having a chance to live a decent life that so many of our young people have, just compounds that sense of paranoia and disgust and anger.
Do you see, and I'm going to kind of wrap it up here because we're running on 15 minutes. I'm going to keep it
Sure.
up. Do you see this boiling over? There seems to be a tremendous amount of anger in society right now, considering financial conditions, kind of what's happened in the last 10 years with war. A lot of people are like, only thing that's available for me out there is a job at McDonald's making $7 an hour. People shouldn't have to work 3 jobs to just have to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And and before you know, your life's over and you're worked to death like a field mule. Do you see this possibly blowing up in America to a point where the authorities just will have no control over it?
Well, there's always that possibility. It's getting pretty rough. I mean, when they're doing Occupy Wall Street and Occupy everywhere, Occupy Dayton, then there are a lot of people out there who are hurting, who don't want to take it anymore. If the conditions stay as they are or get worse, yeah, I think a lot of them are going to come out and say things have to change. Yeah, I think that's quite likely.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? It's been quite interesting. We could go on for hours, actually.
Oh yeah, I can talk about this stuff for a long time. Not really. I mean, one of the things I do is I pay attention to what people do and what they say, and take them seriously. And those folks that you're talking about are telling the truth. They're telling you about their experiences, and if we listen to them, we can learn about society and maybe learn about how to make it better.